Welcome back, brothers and sisters. I am Braden. This is Langley Outdoors Academy, and thank you for stopping by. All right, guys, tonight we've got to take another trip to Michigan together. Now, do you recall in the wake of the Oxford shooting, the situation that was going on there where they basically were floating the idea in the trial balloon of limits on magazines? They didn't introduce a bill, they just kind of like threw it out there, see if it would go over. Well, it must have gone over pretty poorly because that was never introduced. However, they did just introduce something yesterday that is a bill that's going to be introduced in Michigan. Now, if it's actually going to the floor, it's different, but it's been introduced by the Democrat there. This is all around safe storage laws. Now, this might sound familiar, and leave in the comments field below if it sounds like something that we covered or rings akin to like August, April, September, or this year in a different part of the country, specifically New Mexico. I want to hear from you guys on this one, and this is something you need to be aware of because this is not an isolated incident. Gun control does not operate in independent cities and states and control like in that general area. It goes nationwide. This is a hive mind operation. That's what we're going to cover here, and that's where we're angling. Everything is linked in the description box below, including another video that I did on this channel around New Mexico, which I'm going to reference. So it's all down there. I want to hear from you guys. Let's dive in. First article is from CNN. Michigan Democrat introduces legislation requiring gun owners to safely store firearms in wake of Oxford school incident. Okay? I'm just going to say incident because YouTube doesn't like certain words. CNN. Michigan Democratic Rep. Alyssa Slotkin is introducing legislation on Wednesday that would require the safe storage of firearms in the wake of the Oxford school situation in her district that left 4 students dead last month, which is obviously a tragedy. We've covered that almost ad nauseum, right? Slotkin's legislation, called the, quote, Safe Gun, Safe Kids Act, it's always so flowery, you notice that? Would require gun owners to secure firearms away from a child if there's potential access to them and would impose a penalty of up to 5 years in prison time for parents if a child injures themselves or others or uses the firearm in the commission of a crime. All right, so right off the bat, as a gun advocate, gun rights advocate, this is something that when they put flowery language on something and they give you a very vague description, I get a little concerned, right? And here's why I get very concerned. Look at the next thing that they say because the devil is in the details. Always understand the why and the how they're going to do it here. Check this out. Listen to this. What really stood out in Oxford was the role that the parents played, which is a very valid point. Slotkin, who is a moderate Democrat from a swing district, told CNN. Interesting how they threw that in there, right? We came up with this bill, building on good work that others have done, both in the state of Michigan and also federally, and here's the important part, and created a bill that would make it against the law for a person to keep an unsecured firearm if it's in reasonable, the child could access the firearm. So now we've gone from, hold on, let me read that first little snippet that they gave us. A penalty of 5 years if the child injures themselves or others, so it's only based on the outcome. They didn't say anything about if they have access. Now, look at the next paragraph, and created a bill that would make it against the law for a person to keep an unsecured firearm. If it's reasonable, the child could access that firearm. And there's the rub. What's reasonable? If I deem reasonable to be the top of a shelf, 9 feet in the air, but you think that it's not reasonable because you could easily get a chair and then stack a box and then get on top of that and acquire that firearm, all of a sudden we've got a gray area of what's reasonable, and it's a completely subjective measure of safety. And that's why these bills will never work, because you don't have anything hard ironclad, but the left doesn't want ironclad. They want something that they can say, oh, you broke that law because I interpret it this way. That's why it's written in these manners. Now, if you don't believe this is hive mind, I got one more thing, and then I'm going to bring something to your attention. While Slotkin's bill could pass the Democrat-controlled House if it's put to a vote, it faces an uncertain fate in the Senate where Democrats would need at least 10 Republicans to break a filibuster to advance legislation. Now, ironically, this is the exact same situation that Democrats find themselves in on a federal level in the House and Senate. That could pass in the House, it couldn't pass in the Senate, and they would need 10 to break away and defect to break the filibuster. It's exactly what's happening. The filibuster is really ruining some Democrats' lives. But now I want to hearken to something we covered in New Mexico. And you tell me if this is an isolated incident or it sounds familiar. Now, Herndon is one of the people we covered in this previous video. This is a legislator. Herndon said the legislation, the specifics of which are still being worked out, seeks to charge anyone who does not secure their firearms with a 4th-degree felony. So now it's back to anyone who does not secure their firearms. Again, a subjective measure, and another felony. Isn't that interesting how in two completely different parts of the country, Michigan up here and New Mexico down here, completely unrelated Democrats have no ties together whatsoever, come up with the exact same penalty system around safe storage laws? Is that likely? Or does it sound more like Giffords.org and Moms Demand Action has networks in each individual location? This is an orchestrated effort, and that's why we fight every single day. Here's the last thing I want to say. Check this out. Bailey said the NAACP is particularly concerned with parents or adults who do not secure their guns, and those guns end up in the hands of children. He said there must be consequences. That's from an article that I did earlier this year. You can check the video, it's in the description box below, but that is why we fight every single day. The why and the how and the what are crucially important in this fight, and that is how we're going to pass the blessing of the Second Amendment along to the next generation. That's what I've got for you. Let me know what you guys think, and I'll see you on the next one. Braden, signing out.